every single Nintendo console on this list. So let's go ahead and get the video started. We got the NES. Okay, this is a very good console, but compared to some of the other ones on the list, I just can't put it like too high or too low. I'm gonna say B is pretty good, because I mean, I would put it in S tier, but honestly I don't want to do it for its time. But for its time, it definitely was S tier, like there's no doubt about that. But the games that were on here, like all the Super Mario games that came out on the NES are amazing. Metroid, Mega Man, and even the Legend of Zelda games. So many classic games were on here, and is the birth of all these amazing franchises that are so good and known today. But the Super NES definitely gonna be A tier. I like the catalog of games on here a lot more. Super Mario World's probably my second favorite 2D Mario ever, behind Mario Wonder now. Super Metroid was really good. The Zeldas on here are pretty good. The Mega Man, I think it's Mega Man X. Yeah, those games are really good. Super Mario RPG, one of my favorite RPG games of all time. And don't even get me started on the Donkey Kong Countries. Those are some of the best games ever made, especially in the platformer genre. The Super NES is just incredible. One of the best consoles of all time. Game Boy Color, Game Boy Color can honestly go, I'm gonna say it's a C tier console, just because like I feel like the only thing that redeems this Game Boy is the Pokemon games. Like the Pokemon games absolutely carried the Game Boy, and then maybe the Kirby games. The Kirby games, no, the best Kirby games were on the Advance, my bad. But yeah, the Game Boys for their time, they were really cool. I think these were the first actual handheld consoles that Nintendo made, and it was honestly revolutionary for them. And we can look at Nintendo now with like some of the consoles on this list that are going to come up later, and even the Nintendo Switch. It's the founding father of the handheld consoles, and it's amazing. Speaking of that, we have the Game & Watch. This is like, this might be D tier. I think it, I don't know, it could be F tier, but I mean, it's just a whole bunch of little like mini games, and it has Mr. Game & Watch, which I don't know. I think D tier is okay though. And then this Game Boy, I'm gonna say, I mean, same thing really, but it did what I like about this one is you can open and close this one, which honestly I like that a lot more than just that. But honestly, you can't go wrong with both of them. I mean, the Game Boy without the open and close thing is just like a classic game console. N64, this is definitely a A tier. Now, do I put it above here though? I don't know. I think the Super Nintendo, or the Nintendo 64, I'm gonna say is better than the Super NES. It's a really tough choice, because I do honestly think I like the catalog a little. I'll switch it back actually, because I feel like the only game really on here that I really like is Super Mario 64, because I feel like the Super NES just has such a good catalog of games. Like this is like peak gaming back then, and some of the games on the Super NES are still really good. Like you can still play them, and they can beat some current games that are coming out right now. Which leads me to this is like the Game Boy Advance thing. This was like I forgot what this was called, but I know it's like the thing that came out around the DS and the Game Boy Advance's life cycle, but it was so small. I think it might be the smallest console like nearly ever made, which there's no reason to get this, because first of all, you have the DS that came out during this time and the Game Boy Advance. So why would you want this? It couldn't play DS games, and it only really played Game Boy Advance, so it had really no purpose. It was like, I guess you can say it's more of like a collectible, but this is definitely an F tier. Really no point in getting this. GameCube, y'all can't even hate me. GameCube is S tier. One of the best consoles ever made. I mean, it literally has Smash Melee, Super Mario Sunshine, Luigi's Mansion, Metroid Prime, the OG Pikmin games, and it came out with Twilight Princess and even Wind Waker. These games that came out on the GameCube are amazing. Absolutely love the GameCube, and this is the first game console I ever played. Some of the first games I ever played were Luigi's Mansion and Mario Sunshine, so this console is just amazing. I love the GameCube so much. Next up, we have the Wii U. The Wii U is underrated in my opinion. I think it's bottom of B tier. Some people would probably put it in C or D, but I had the game, not the GameCube, the Wii U, and the Wii U was amazing to me. Like it wasn't, I'm not gonna sit here and say it's the best, but it was pretty good. When we think of the catalog that came out on here, like you have Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, Wind Waker HD, Breath of the Wild, which came out at the end, but it's mostly known for Nintendo Switch, so I'm not even gonna count Breath of the Wild. It had Super Mario 3D World, World, Super Mario Bros. U, which isn't really that good, but I did like Luigi's U because that was very creative and I really like Luigi. Even Nintendo Land was really good on here. I'm not even gonna lie. And Super Smash Bros. 4, I actually really, that's arguably probably my second favorite Smash Bros of all time behind the Ultimate. But other than that, I really can't think of much on here. I know it's definitely gonna be probably the bottom of B, but yeah, it's overhated in my opinion. I think it was a solid game console from Nintendo, even though it did flop really bad. But next up, we have the Virtual Boy. This is F tier. This is probably the worst console on this list. At least with this thing, I know it's really small, but at least you could play Game Boy Advance games on it. Like, at least you could play some of the best Nintendo games on it. Like, even though the screen was small, like you could still play like some of the best Pokemon games. Even the Kirby games that came out on the Game Boy Advance were really good. Yeah, there's really not much to say about this console. It's pretty bad. Everyone knows that. This is probably the worst Nintendo console of all time. Next up, the Nintendo Switch. I don't even gotta say much, guys. The Nintendo Switch is the best Nintendo console of all time. I'm not even gonna debate it. Like, if you guys don't think the Nintendo Switch is the best console yet, then I don't know what you're thinking. Like, it's gonna be the best console probably, unless the Switch 2 beats it somehow, but I don't know if it can beat it. The catalog on the Nintendo Switch is so good. Can't beat Mario Odyssey. You can't beat like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. Kirby games that came out on here, the first 3D Kirby game to come out on here too was amazing. Donkey Kong kind of lacked on here, but at least all the good games off of the Wii U, except for like Wind Waker HD, were on this console. So I mean, yeah, because the Wii U was so bad, no one got to play the game, so they just put them on the Nintendo Switch. So basically, it's like a Wii U on steroids. It's just a perfect console. I mean, it has all the retro games basically now. All the games that come out in here are amazing. It has some of the best games of all time. But that's enough time about the Nintendo Switch. Let's go to the original DS. The original DS is ugly looking. I'm not really a fan of it just because of the newer ones that came out, but it is good. So I'm gonna put it at the bottom. I'm gonna put it's gonna be the top of C tier. I think that's really good. I mean, the original DS could play, of course, the DS games. It has some of the best DS games of all time. Like, you're able to play you're able to basically play any Pokemon game on here except the Game Boy ones, because you could play Game Boy Advance games on here. So you're able to play like all the best Pokemon games on this console, which is like probably the best thing about it. But when you look at Mario Kart DS, that was a solid game. Some people like Super Mario 64 DS. I'm not really a fan of it, but as a kid I really enjoyed it. Mario Party DS was good. Mario Bros DS was really good. But other than that, I mean, the DS, basically I know it for Pokemon. The Pokemon games on here are some of my favorites. Next up, I have no clue what that is, sorry about that, but DS Lite, we're gonna put it right here. I think it looks amazing. It's close to beating the NES, but I don't know if I can put it above the NES. I feel like the NES's games are just really good, because I feel like the Pokemon games are the only reason that the DS is like considered in such high regards, and those are the only games I really would go back and play on the DS, if I'm gonna be honest with you. Like Mario Kart DS, I mean, is outdated. A lot of the older games on here are outdated. Mario Bros DS isn't really outdated, so you can always go back and play it. But other than that, I mean, I'm only gonna go back to the DS for Pokemon, which brings me to this hunk of joy, the 2DS XL. Guys, when I tell you the 3DS and 2DS, they cooked. Nintendo cooked with this console. So I'm not gonna go into depth of why it's so popular now, but if you know, you know. Guys, there's an amazing catalog on these games. This is one of my favorite consoles of all time, and I have one. I have a 3DS XL, actually, not a 2DS XL, but I still play it because you can play literally all the best games on here. So you can play all the DS games, which is awesome. So you can play all the Pokemon games. You can play Ocarina of Time 3D, Majora's Mask 3D. The Kirby games on here are really fun. I love Triple Deluxe. That's one of my favorite Kirby games. Mario 3D Land, which is a pretty solid game for 3D Mario. I mean, it defined a whole new genre. The 3DS Pokemon games, they're pretty good too. Gen 6, Gen 7 are really solid entries. And you can't go wrong with the Kid Icarus game that came out on here. Like, that game is, they need to make a comeback for Kid Kid Icarus. That game was really underrated. But yeah, I'm a really big fan of this console. It's the best like handheld console on this list. Not, well, okay, pure handheld I meant, because of course the Switch is gonna be higher, but it's really good to travel with. Like literally, I take my 3DS nearly anywhere I go with me, because you can just literally put it in your pocket, which is so convenient. Like you really literally just, it's like a phone. You can just put it in your pocket, and whenever you're not doing anything, you just whip it out and play. Which brings me to the 3DS XL. I'm gonna put it above the 2DS XL. They're both basically the same, just this one doesn't have the 3D feature. But I mean, obviously you can also tie them together. I mean, they can also be tied, but the 2DS, I'm gonna put it like I'm gonna put it A tier just because of the catalog. But I'm not a fan of how like it can't flip open and it just looks weird to me. But I think I'm gonna put it top of A just because the catalog is so good, and you can play not on this one. You can only play Super NES games on the new ones because of the virtual console. But yeah, this is still a good console. I'm just not a fan of the design compared to the other ones. Like the normal 3DS, it's gonna be top of A. Like they can basically be even, but I like the 3DS more than the 2DS. I just don't like that little shape it has going. Okay, the Wii is S tier, but the real question is it better than the GameCube? This I'm not really sure about. I think I'm gonna put it right there for now. I'm trying to think. So Super Mario Bros. Wii is super good. I don't know, because the Mario Kart game, I'm gonna put the Wii right here. I think the 3DS and stuff is better than the Wii though. I do like the Wii a lot because Mario Galaxy, both the Mario Galaxies on here, and you can play Twilight Princess. But honestly, Twilight Princess was so much better on the GameCube because I don't like the motion controls. But Mario Kart Wii is fantastic. Super Mario Bros. on the Wii is fantastic. Mario Party 8 was good. The Kirby games on here were really good. You can play Metroid M, I think it was, and I forgot the other one. They're pretty good. But other than that, yeah, I mean, the Wii was amazing. Nintendo Switch Lite, honestly, this is probably, I'm gonna put it above the Wii. It's the same thing as the Switch. You just can't dock it, which is the only flaw. But I mean, it's basically a worse version of the 3DS because you can't put it in your pocket, but it's still a really good like handheld console, like pure handheld console. It's amazing. But I mean, this is something that I feel like only casual, like, well, not really casual, but I don't know how to explain it. It's a really cheap, well, not really cheap. It's $200. I don't know why I'm making it seem like it's cheap, but it's a good alternative. And I feel like for the price, you get a really good, like, you get a bang for your buck for the price. And I feel like a lot of people deserve this one. But next up, Switch OLED. I wish I had the Switch OLED. I don't have it, but I've seen it on display. I have the normal Switch, like the first one that came out on release, but Switch OLED is a much needed upgrade I wish I had. I just don't feel like paying the price for the Switch OLED since the new console is gonna be coming out any minute, well, not any minute, but it's gonna be coming out this year. But Switch OLED, best console on this list, hands down. Game Boy Advance. Game Boy Advance is amazing. I do love the Game Boy Advance. I'm gonna put it right there. I'm a big fan of the handheld consoles that Nintendo has made. And the Game Boy Advance, I actually have a Game Boy Advance too, which is the crazy thing. I bought it back in, I forgot, but I play, because you can play Game Boy games on there too, so it's like, it's really good just for that reason. You can play Game Boy and you can play Game Boy Advance, and I love the Game Boy Advance games. Some of my favorite games of all time are on there, especially the Pokemon ones. The Pokemon Game Boy Advance games are some of the best in the series with the DS. But yeah, amazing console. So here's the classic editions. This is kind of weird to put them just because they're like basically emulators. I have both of them and I really enjoy them, but I'm gonna put the NES one right above it and Super NES right above its original console, just because it's only limited to those games. But if you want to like feel like how you're playing that, like there's a mode to play with like the vintage filter, which is really cool. But yeah, I really enjoy these consoles. They're more of like collectibles than actual like consoles still, but I still play them because I do enjoy the NES and Super NES catalog. So it's always fun to whip those out every once in a while and play some old games. Next up, we have the Game & Watch things for the anniversaries. So this one came out for Zelda's 30th or 35th anniversary. I actually forgot what it was for, but I do remember when it was announced. These are mostly collectibles. I couldn't see playing them. I'm pretty sure they only play the original games. Like this one only plays Super Mario. This one only plays the first Zelda, which is kind of like disappointing, but it's more of a collectible, like I said. So honestly, I'm gonna put it, honestly, they can go with the Game & Watch just because as consoles, they're not really that good. but for collectibles, they are good. If this was a collectible video, they would be S tier, but I just can't do that. Now this one, I don't know. And not aware there was another Super NES. So I'm just gonna put this in no clue. Is this some kind of, I don't know what these are down here, so I'm just gonna put them in no clue as well. I don't know what kind of game consoles those are, but this is my list. I'm really proud of it. I think I got my list. I think I pinned a tail on a donkey with this one. Tell me in the comments what you guys think and what you would change. I think I've made a pretty good list, but yeah, like I said, tell me what you would change in the comments, and peace out.